Hi, welcome to That Reminds Me Of, a podcast about film and the films that remind us of that film. You're here with Baron and the Doc.
And the Maestro.
Do we need another drink?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Baron, my friend, how are you?
Doc, how are you?
I'm very well.
Excellent.
This side-by-side sitting.
This is the thing we do sometimes. Yeah. And we do this when we have a special guest on the show.
We do. Who's our guest today?
It's Sean Mackaay. We've had him on before talking about Thor, Love and Thunder. And I guess we should, before we say hi to him, we should also mention the film that we're talking about.
And which film are we watching? We watched this time.
Actually, I've just realised we have Sean on for sequels. That's a thing.
Oh,
so
wow,
we're now watching Avatar. We're talking about Avatar, The Way of Water.
Avatar 2.
That's right. Sean, how are you?
Hey guys, how are we?
Really good. Thank you for coming back on. I'm glad we didn't.
That's fine. I thought we were doing Avatar: The Last Airbender, so I've watched the wrong film for this.
Oh man, which version? Well, no, that's a whole different thing. Let's just.
Well, you're our first.
Thank you for having me back.
You're our first return guest, Sean. So that means something.
That is awesome. I did actually do a bit of scouting ahead of recording.
See if there was a better podcast you could be on.
No, to see if you'd repeated anybody yet.
Right.
Yeah.
No, you're the first. Thank you.
This is the can of podcasts. If you get into it, you get it on the whole podcast circuit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wicked. This is what I've always looked forward to. You know?
Yeah. If you can't actually go to Cannes, you can, do the can of podcasts.
Yeah. So I think the last time we spoke with Sean, let's get into the movie pretty soon.
Yes.
But it would be crazy not to mention that you were working on, what do you call it, like a real-time novel that you were releasing in bits and writing in real time. And I was mightily impressed at the time. So impressed that I went and bought the actual Lunch Eater Raw. Where do I show this?
You got it. You're in. This is perfect.
I cannot wait for that royalty check in a few months.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we've both read it, haven't we? And both loved it.
Yeah, we've both said, so at the time when we should have read it, when it was fresh last time, we both were embarrassingly behind the pace. This time we both read
that's
it.
fine.
Yeah.
And Kim found a way of not subscribing to the newsletter, but reading the book.
Yes.
Well done.
That's right.
He did it his way. I did it the other way.
We all have our
neither of us did it the way you intended, reading it chapter by chapter as it was released, but we got there. And we're going to do a little bonus episode on this.
Sure.
After this, because
sounds good.
We want to crack on with Avatar and not get derailed, which will happen anyway with us.
Yes.
For sure. So we'll try
undoubtedly. I mean, last time we talked for 2.5 hours
Correct.
about Thor, and that was a mess, that movie. So
yeah, it's easy to do. Okay, so to start with, I think we should do what we've been doing recently, which is throw to the Maestro. By the way, hi, Maestro.
Hi, everyone. How are you going?
Hi, Maestro.
Hi.
Sean can't see you, but he's here.
Long-time listener, first time.
Yeah, not seeing, but knowing that you're there. And just recently, the Maestro's been doing the IMDb synopsis for us, saving us from messing that up. So fire away.
Here you go. So, Avatar, The Way of Water. Jake Sully lives with his newfound family formed on the extrasolar moon Pandora. Once a familiar threat returns to finish what was previously started, Jake must work with Neytiri and the army of the Navy race to protect their home.
Righto.
Mm-hmm.
Go for it.
Okay.
Thanks, IMDb, but
thank you.
I'd also just like you to break that down for me.
Yeah.
Baron?
Well, James Cameron is sort of, I guess, classic for his, known for his, Hollywood structure, writing and doing his big action extravaganzas that feel like they hit all the beats. So I thought this film does do that. It is in 3 very distinct parts. You can break it into 3 acts very easily without thinking very hard about it. So just so we're all on the same page about what we're talking about, this might give us some structure. Here is the 3 acts as far as I understand them. Part 1 starts off with the world that we all know of Pandora, and it catches us up to the present quite quickly with Sully and Neytiri. They have kids now. He's a well-respected war leader. And then we discover very quickly that the bad guys are coming back, and for some reason the Na'vi are powerless to stop them. They're just going to come down on their giant ships and set up and start doing exactly what they were doing before Avatar 1 started. Importantly, our villain is back, which I always forget that guy's name.
Quartridge.
Yep, that guy. He's back, and he's along with all his henchmen, and this time they're avatars. They've got their own avatars. And their mission is to hunt and kill Sully. Sully realizes this and makes a decision to leave and go into hiding. That's the turning point, I would say, of the first act.
Yep.
And then you've got part 2 where we get the Waterworld village that is actually where the rest of this film takes place. That's where they escape to, Sully and his family. And you're almost getting Avatar 1 all over again, but this time... What happened?
Sorry.
Is it the drinking happening at the same time?
It's the drinking. It's the water world. It's
Beautiful.
all of it.
It's the way of water.
Yeah.
Sean.
It's the way of water. It's the way of vodka and
It's
Red
a
Bull.
way of, and sparkling water.
All right. So you got villages that they move in with. There's all new tension between all these different characters. There's basically a storyline within the greater storyline of moving into this new place. And that's where the sort of real storyline of the B story, I would say, of the son who's trying to win his father's approval kicks in, and that plays right through to the end. I would say the turning point is when the bad guys finally track them down, arrive at the village, and start what would become the third part, which is war right through to the end, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the bad guys kill off some animals and in an awful way, causing all of the Na'vi to attack. And there's a war, which there's something I'd love to come back to, which we will. The war suddenly disappears at a certain point, and it just becomes Jake Sully's family versus the bad guys. And that then goes to the end with the, what you expect. So that's how I'd break it down.
Sure.
Plenty of spoilers in there. Should have led with that.
How can you not?
Yeah.
No, spoiler heavy. And look, I big tick for Act 1, Act 2. I was drunk during Act 3, so I'm taking it on faith that was correct. But Act 1, Act 2, very well done.
Okay, great.
That's what the film is objectively. I'd like some subjective stuff now.
Yeah.
And I'd like to turn to our guest.
No. I've been thinking about this since I watched it. I'm like, a right of refusal. You guys go first this time out.
Why?
No.
I am not having Kim do what he did last time.
What did I do last time?
I talked about Thor for like 10, 15 minutes, railing against that film. And then Kim goes, but.
What did I say? I can't remember yesterday, let alone that episode. What did we all think of that movie, Thor?
It was trash.
But
it was trash, and we finally convinced you that it was trash.
Oh, but
did I not think it was trash? In hindsight,
no, you thought that there were two potentially good films hiding inside that trash.
And then he made us think about what those films might be.
Yeah.
Classic.
Oh, wow.
Classic doc.
I'm a thinker.
You are a thinker.
Well, so who started? Do you want me to start? I'm happy to start.
Yeah, please.
Sure.
Yeah, I hated it.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, thank God.
Tables are turned.
I completely hated this film.
Excellent.
I don't have. Well, I had vague memories of the original Avatar, and I remember that I thought it was okay. I didn't love it.
Actually, I think that's a good place to start before talking about this film.
Okay.
Because I think how you reacted to the first film probably will line up with how you reacted to this film.
Yes.
So you thought it was all right?
No, that's my memory of what I thought about it. What I actually thought about it upon rewatching it was that it was unwatchable, and I just could not. I did watch it in the end, but I just thought it was one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life.
Wow. Okay.
Sure.
But
we can get into more of that, but that's the starting point, and let's go around the grounds.
Wow. Okay. Does that give you enough?
Yeah, it does.
Well, one other thing. It's not, even though I've said it's the worst movie ever, there are a lot of good bits and things and devices in it. So there are things that I respect, but on the whole, more that I don't like at all.
I'm going to be the guy that says that he quite likes Avatar 1 and 2, but I'm looking forward to hearing what Sean has to say.
Well, maybe you should go next just for some variety.
You think so?
Well,
yeah.
Then have Sean just crush your dreams.
No, that's cool. Look, honestly, there are some big problems in this film, but I'm still kind of there for it, as I was with the first film, for the visual spectacle of it, for the world that is built and created, and the audacity of it. I think it's still a big film, even though not surprising in the way that the first one was, that came out of nowhere, it seemed, and was surprising because it was such a vision. This one, I think kind of what lets it down is that I think it leans very heavily on the first film, too heavily, and there aren't enough surprises in it.
Yeah, that's fair. I put in my little notes that I was taking before I got smashed early in it, I said, how much did they reuse? Because like the opening sequences, they could have just plonked it. And that's fine. Like, it's the same world. Why wouldn't you? But
even down to ending on pretty much the same shot with Jake Sully opening his eyes. Yeah, that moment. Sean just opened his eyes like Jake Sully.
I missed it. I was looking at...
You missed it. Don't worry. We'll loop back at the end of the episode and I'll do it.
Before we get into some of the things that, into a bit more detail, I'd like your top-level thoughts, Sean.
Okay, so the first one, the universe conspired to make me sit through, much like with this one. At the time, I was like properly reviewing movies, so I had to sit through it. But it's one of the few films I've ever considered walking out of.
Really?
Like, just awful.
Really?
Absolutely awful. Like, half an hour of how pretty it was, and then I was like,
and you've got to give it that. Like, it looks beautiful, and back then it looked even more beautiful, I suspect.
Totally.
But that was my memory.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it was.
Yeah. This one reminds me of a girl I dated briefly years ago who was gorgeous but thoroughly uninteresting. She was blue. I find myself in two minds about this. If I was reviewing this film, I don't think I could say this is a bad film, steer clear, because I think it's gorgeous and an experience. And for a lot of people, that's going to be enough, being immersed in that, because it is such a leap forward, this film. But if I start being a critic or my own personal reactions to it, oh, God, why is it 3 hours? There's an hour of story in there, maybe.
Yeah. That's
like
true.
This film is so in love with itself and just insists upon itself. And I'm just like, no more. And yet I know that the universe will conspire so that 2 years from now I'll end up seeing Avatar 3.
Yeah, you will.
Reason.
You'll be in there day one with your 3D glasses on.
Are we setting a date for me back on the podcast 2 years out?
Episode 148. What it did have, and this sort of goes to what you set us up with Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, it's like an instruction manual on how to create a movie and how to break it up, and little things like how to create motivations. Like there's an instance where one of the blue characters gives another blue character a bow and says, this was what my father used, or something to create within 2 seconds motivation and significance and all that sort of stuff to that character's arc, which there's so much of that done really succinctly and well. So that's a plus, but also so boringly and textbook, which is a minus.
Yeah, it's actually a bit strange because Cameron's always been a bit of a simple storyteller.
Right.
Like he does that thing where he sets up those motivations succinctly and he hits the beats that are quite classic. But it often felt in this that he's done that really well in the past and just doesn't have it anymore. Like, I don't know whether he's lost it. Like, because when I think about the storytelling, there's a few moments that I'm like, I don't really entirely get the motivation of the bad guys, whatever. But the worst I can say about it is it's competent. Like, he hits the beats that he needs to hit to set up where he needs to go. But as you say, so boring.
It felt very derivative of itself. Like, you were sort of going,
I will drink to that.
Yeah. Here's Avatar 2 leaning so heavily on Avatar 1 that it's not surprising. And the first film, at least, you hadn't seen it. You hadn't seen anything quite like it before in terms of the visuals. Yeah. The story was very familiar, but that was kind of, I think, good in a way because you were being presented with this extravaganza. A simple story gives you a through line. You're not thinking too hard about that. You're just watching the visuals and it's fun. That's how I found it anyway.
I disagree, but I definitely see your point.
You see the point. I think there were things in this that were forgivable for me, and then there were other things that I found really hard to forgive. So I had really mixed feelings about this film the whole way through because I was trying to go on the journey, and then there were these huge plot holes or just these unexplained leaps that you were just asked to take. And I didn't understand it from a writing perspective. And I was sitting there going, it's been 12 years since the last film came out. How have you not worked out these problems yet? I don't understand.
Honestly, I had a friend last week say a similar thing to me, and obviously they didn't take 12 years to write.
Sure.
But apparently it took 4 years to write this plus the next two sequels. And I'm like, really? Like, there's only an hour of story here, and if you took longer than 45 minutes to write it, you've taken too long.
Right. And it's not James Cameron on his own. We've got Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silva, who are they're a couple, right? Have I got that right? That they're a couple, those two?
To the IMDb's.
Yeah, I think so. They did the Planet of the Apes films.
They did,
and that's what I know them from.
Which I like, the Planet of the Apes.
Particularly I'm trying to remember them all now, but I think that I definitely liked the first one a lot, and then I think they started to go downhill a little bit after that, if I recall correctly. But I thought the first couple were at least really solid.
Yes. It was something like that.
And it was all like there was none of this kind of storytelling that you see here that I can recall, like massive plot holes, like what I mentioned earlier, like the Na'vi water world villagers attacking in force and then just disappearing with no explanation. Have I got that right?
They're just no, we're cool.
Completely.
That's all right.
Yep.
Jake's told us to hold still, so I guess we do that.
We're just gonna go home, and we'll see you guys at the end. I'm sure it'll be fine.
But Baron, you liked the first one quite a bit. Is that a fair?
Yeah, to the point where I went to the cinema a few times to see that film. Yeah. I admit it. I loved it. I was in all the way.
I can imagine. I can
Sean's
imagine
lost
it.
all respect for me.
No, but it was a big film and it was a big experience, wasn't it? And I'd forgotten it was 3D. I think that was part of the thing, wasn't it? That it was really an immersive thing that, like we've never seen before.
Yep.
Yeah. And there will be people who have the same reaction to this.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
I will see this film again. It's got big problems, but I will go back for the world presented. I will. I already know I will. And I'll see it with my girls and we'll all sit there and enjoy it.
Avatar 3 and 4, not this one.
No, this one too.
Okay.
And then I'll watch them all and then when they're all out, I'll go back and I'll watch them. Now, I don't think I will watch them in the way that I've watched The Lord of the Rings, any number of times now.
Okay, sure.
But it feels like it's wanting to be that. It wants to be the epic world that you re-immerse yourself in over and over again, to relive the moments, to relive the world, to feel like you're traveling back to Pandora. That's what it's trying to be, I think.
I think you're right. And I think for a lot of people, that will actually be the case. Like, this film's going to go freaking gangbusters.
Yeah.
I know Cameron sat there and gone, oh, well, Avatar 4 and 5 will only happen if 2 and 3 make money. like this isn't going to make money. Like,
Yeah.
they're going to make their nut on it. It'll push past the first one probably. Because people will go for that. They just want to be immersed in it. They don't really care about the story. And if the story was too busy or too interesting, for want of another word, people actually wouldn't go back for it.
I think you're
because
right.
they want that simplicity so that they can kind of like bliss out, if you will.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing to this story. It's like it uses the word family more than the entire Fast and the Furious franchise. It's kind of like, remember how the bad guys in the first one did a 9/11? Well, this time they do war crimes. And scene?
I was having this moment as I was watching it where I was going, this is either clever or stupid. And
definitely stupid.
No, let me tell you which bit I'm talking about. Yes. The bit I'm talking about is that it leans so heavily on so many like specific elements from the first film and bringing those back to the second film. I was going, this is clever because people are nostalgic about the first film. And so they're going to respond in a nostalgic way, I think, to those same elements. But it's not, but I think it's a little bit short-sighted in that as a series that you watch back later, I don't think that holds up. You're going to come to see the patterns repeating across the films, and it's going to be annoying. I think.
Well, you'd hope we don't get that in 3 and 4, I suppose. With the
I
gap,
think
maybe you can excuse it.
Exactly that. Like, you know, if you've got a 13-year gap, you can kind of sit there and go, all right, well, we need to revisit this so people don't actually have to go back and watch the first one. But with a 2-year gap, people are just, they won't shut up about this film for the next 2 years. Like, who's Kiri's dad? Why has she got Matrix powers?
Yeah, okay.
I don't know.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
I swear to
those
God,
are burning questions for me too.
I am going to go on Reddit right now, and I guarantee you they are having that conversation.
Oh yeah, they are.
Hey, with the initial one, so it was the biggest movie of all time and remains so. Is that correct?
The initial one?
Yeah.
Well,
wasn't it the?
It held that title for a long time. I don't know. Does it? If it still does, I'm not sure.
Highest grossing film of all time. Yeah.
It still got that?
Okay. So it was
$2.9 billion globally.
Okay. So
and that was a 600.
You guys read that?
Oh, no, it's all blurry.
Where's that? It's a Reddit thread about who is Kiri's dad.
Yeah, it looked like a Reddit thread. That's all I can say. But for the highest grossing film of all time, was it just that I was, drunk or stoned at the time? But it feels like it didn't enter the public consciousness. And, like a Star Wars or something else where everyone knows everything about it. Why? Like it's not in popular culture.
It did, but it didn't get embedded, I think is what happened. Like a friend reminded me recently that when the first one came out, everybody was talking about it. There were people crying because they weren't Na'vi and could never live on Pandora, for fuck's sake.
Really?
That's right. Yeah.
Like it was everywhere. And of course it was, because it went absolutely gangbusters. But then because there was no sequel, there was no expanded universe, nothing like that, it just kind of dropped off the radar. And you could almost say that it was a surprisingly subversive film, and maybe that played a role in things.
How do you mean by that?
The bad guys are explicitly coded as being the US and they do a 9/11.
Yeah.
If that's not subversive, I literally don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that makes the film any more interesting, but I do think that may have been part, like it's pretty anti-US and pretty anti-imperialist and anti-war and pro-environment.
Yeah.
And that's not a power fantasy for people, unlike, say, the Marvel movies where people are like, I want to be Iron Man. Like you look at this and you're kind of like, I want to be a Smurf whose environment is under threat, I guess.
It's the Smurfs. My goodness.
It is.
We are getting dangerously close to that reminds me of.
No, I think the call for people pretty clearly is, I want to go tribal. I want to live with nature again. That seems to be the real call. And for a lot of people, that's attractive in the world we live in today.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
Just on the anti-America stuff. So you think of Top Gun, and it's all pro the macho defense people. This one, a quote was, "A Marine can't be defeated. You can kill us, but we'll just regroup in hell." That's a freaking quote. Yeah. And I thought that was awful, an awful thing to say about Marines who give their service to the country. And like, that's not that's not the view I'd normally take, but it was such an outrageous comment that I thought, how's this got through the American censors?
Well, this is why it's going to go gangbusters in China. Yeah, look, it's politically, like, the themes of it are quite messy, I reckon, because you've got this real staunchly, like, anti-America, like, you've got, this is actually one of the more subtle moments of the film, is essentially America, when it is faced with nature, either tries to dominate it or profit from it, and then it becomes less obvious, less subtle towards the end of the film when you have Brendan Cowell just running around going, money, all the time.
Yeah, that wasn't about America. That was about Aussies being wankers.
That wasn't my read, but it was nice to see Brendan Cowell getting work.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, you guys should get him on. I'm sure he's not doing a huge amount. Come at me, bro. Come at me. You're one of Australia's national treasures. You need more work.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at the same time, it's all mixed up with this whole white savior thing, which is pretty gross. And like Jake Sully was a white savior in the first film and is now the white savior in the second film.
That's conflicting, isn't it?
And you're just like, ugh, that's nasty. Also, the whole thing with Moana's tribe, I mean, the sea folk, is they're like the whales. The whales are non-violent, and any violent whale gets outcast. But they clearly have no issues with killing. Yeah, they're like, but we love a fight. Like, I'm like,
yeah, it's confusing.
Yeah, look, there were moments in this film that just made me shake my head.
Do you know what? The moment that made me almost drop out of my seat was, I don't know if I missed something. I don't think I missed something, but the boy, one of Jake Sully's kids, the one who's out there with the outcast.
Oh, you mean
whale.
the one that's actually got a character as opposed to the other one, which is older brother?
Correct, older brother. Yeah. Anyway, younger brother out there with the outcast whale is trying to communicate with the whale and asking him, tell me your life story. Tell me what's wrong with you. Why are you outcast? Yeah. And then just out of nowhere, we just get subtitles for the whale.
Subtitles for the whale.
And it just says, and the whale just says, it's too painful.
It's too painful.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, wait, what? The whale can just speak now, and we're not explaining this. We're just dropping. It's too painful. That's the first line.
And he's like, okay, bro. That's fine.
Oh, I can understand you. Mind blowing. No, it's fine.
Well, look, whenever I'm talking to whales, if they put up the subtitles, suddenly I can speak to them. So it makes sense to me.
Explain no more. That's fine.
Though, and speaking of moments, we've got to get to the moment with Maestro in a moment. But just on the whale talking, I did nearly go under my chair with embarrassment when that subtitle came on. But then I thought about it, and they are at one with nature in this ecosystem. They're all talking to each other, the trees and the blues and the greens and the whales. So it does make sense that there's...
Blues and the greens and the whales. Yeah, lovely.
It does make sense that they all are communicating, whereas we don't give whales the credit. I'm sure they're saying stuff.
It's true.
We don't give them the credit.
They are. If they just had subtitles, everything would be okay.
Actually, on that note, is it all animals and fauna that have USB ports, or is it just some?
Oh, good question. I was wondering about that too. And did you realize that some could have them internally? They weren't all all ponytails. Sometimes they're throat tails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, this is my issue with the film. There is so much world building happening on screen that has nothing to do with anything. I've said it before in my newsletter. World building only matters if it impacts the story or the characters. Everything else is just freaking window dressing. And this is 192 minutes of window dressing.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if I'm agreeing with you or taking a counterpoint. I'll just keep speaking and see what happens.
Cool.
It is the film. The world building is what
is the film. Yes.
is the film.
Yeah.
It's what people like because there is no story. So the world building must, by extension, be pretty red hot world building. And it kind of is all right.
Sure, but
there's no story.
Exactly. Wouldn't you prefer, like, I had this moment where I was like, wow, this motion capture, it's such a leap forward. But if they took this mocap and then they animated on stick figures but gave me a better story, I would be far happier than I currently am now. He's created a problem of his own making and then gone, hey, guys, I solved it. I don't care, Mr. Cameron. Like, nobody sat there and went, let's do performance capture underwater for a reason because it's silly. Anyway.
No, you're right.
Shall Maestro have his moment?
Yes.
Let's get to the
Maestro.
Yes, completely agree with what you're saying. I mean, it's the art direction in that movie saved the movie, if we want to save something. That's for sure. But in that movie, I saw a series of books. First of all, there is the Jungle Book. Spider, it's exactly
I saw that too.
A Disney character. Then there is Moby Dick, of course. There is also Pinocchio, because he's suddenly going out of his way connecting to the USB. So there is everything. And of course there is Titanic. I mean, seriously.
The way that ship goes down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jake and Jack. I mean, try to change a bit the names. While they were in the punch up, at one point I thought, well, I can see also the same punch up on the Titanic.
Yes, I thought that too. The fighting on the ship as it's going down was...
Suddenly I could see Leonardo DiCaprio mixing up with that punch up. There was nothing really new.
While you're on imagery from James fucking Cameron's...
That's exactly what I refer to as.
James, where are we? Who are we? Anyway, while we're talking about imagery that is familiar, there's Newt and Ripley from Aliens just in there as well. Like, and just the way the tunnel of the upside down ship with the water is filmed. It's like the lighting. It's almost like bang on Aliens.
I've just got it while we're on that. How ludicrous does the blue Sigourney Weaver look? Is this just me? But she's the only one that looks different in there. Like Jake Sully looks like he's been part of this community forever. And then she's got this Anglo Weaver face in this big skinny blue body, and it just doesn't make any sense to me.
It gets into uncanny valley territory.
Yes, it's like she's a deep fake.
Yeah.
Which the whole movie's a deep fake. What am I talking about?
Why do the half-breeds, if you will, really derogative term there, but a human hand rather than a normal Na'vi hand, that stopped me from ever getting close to getting sucked in by this film. I know it's such a weird thing to get hung up on, but I'm like, if two Na'vi, regardless of whether Jake used to be a human or not, he's in a Na'vi body, do whatever the Na'vi do, connect like USB connectors, and then have a kid, why would they come out with like human hand, but the rest of them's Na'vi?
It's a great question.
For the narrative device of saying.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
Cool.
Because of CRISPR.
Because of CRISPR.
Yeah. So that's what I've got. It explains everything, and nothing else needs to be said. There is a part of me that is a little concerned that each film is going to address a different environmental issue.
Ooh.
Has that crossed your mind that maybe, we've got...
Oh, yeah.
Like the
we don't get space whales next time. It'll be something about food scarcity or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Or
it'll be a virus.
Or could be. It just
freaking pandemic.
It's concerning because we've had running. We've sort of had deforestation and mining, and now we've got overfishing and marine sanctuaries, and it just feels like, yeah, we're going to, I don't know what the next one will be, but I'm sure it'll be something equally on the nose.
Space cows, methane. Do you watch?
Methane. Oh, yeah. Farming practices.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Aaron, co-host, I've got a question.
Yes.
What did Avatar 2, The Way of Water, remind you of?
So many. Aside from Avatar 1, which we've already covered, it actually had me thinking a lot about The Lord of the Rings, the trilogy, the films, because I was just like, that's if I'm thinking about what Avatar's trying to be, that is the best reference I have for doing it properly. You know, doing that giant world, fantasy world in parts well. And I could see where things were kind of working here, and I could see where they weren't. Sean's shaking his head. He's not convinced
I just
at all.
hate those films.
Oh, do you? I love those films.
I do.
Oh, man.
So
Okay.
using them as kind of the bar of like, how do you do a fantasy trilogy? Because this isn't science fiction, let's be honest. It is fantasy.
Yeah.
Doing a fantasy trilogy well, I'm just like, but they didn't.
But Lord of the
God,
Rings.
that's so hard for me to take. Okay, so go on.
I'm not a Lord of the Rings guy either, but you'd have to say that it's well done for its genre.
It was an achievement, I will say that.
But the other thing...
I just like, the best thing about The Two Towers, the book, is how queer it is with Sam and Frodo running around the countryside holding hands. And the best thing about Return of the King is how it's the action book. And for some reason, he was like, let's do the reverse of that. We could be here literally all night if we get too deep into this. But I take your point. Yes, that does set a bar for how to achieve something like this.
And also just the obvious parallel of shooting them all at once.
Back to back,
Which is hard and, you know, in an interesting approach in itself, because it presents so many challenges.
Oh, yeah.
Who's next? I reckon Sean. Did it remind you of anything other than like a bad meal?
So I'm going to use one I used on the Thor episode, which is Baron Munchausen, because of the freaking space whales, man.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Space whales.
So next time there's a movie with space whales, let me know. I'll come back.
And it didn't remind you of The Whale Rider?
No, but it did remind me of Free Willy.
Okay. Yeah. I get it. It's beautiful.
And the Snorks, obviously.
And the Snorks.
You guys remember the Snorks?
Yeah, I remember the Snorks.
I don't remember the Snorks.
Okay, so back in the 80s, they were like a knockoff Smurfs, but what if underwater?
Yeah.
Were they done by the same sort of production brain?
No, I don't think so. I think somebody literally looked at the Smurfs and went, I could do that, but I'll put it underwater.
Yeah.
And they had like snorkels for on the top of their head rather than hats.
It might be starting to come back. I was drunk in the 80s.
He was only 10 at the time, but he was drunk all the time.
It's my turn?
Yeah, it's your turn.
Sure.
Well, in a preface to this reminds me of is that I thought there was something creepily, sort of uncomfortably sexual about these films.
Oh, yeah.
With these blue people, particularly the women, running around like basically just sexualized, and that made me just a little sort of uncomfortable. I love this sort of stuff, but I'd rather if they're gonna be so.
I love sexy blue chicks.
Yeah,
go on.
If they're gonna be, I want them to own it, and I want them to be like actually properly sexualized, not kind of this family movie vibe. But then everyone's got their cans out, and Sean's going to say something. I'll continue, but I want to hear what his interjections.
I would also just like to know what you reminds me of is.
Yeah, no, I'm building to it. Right.
Being strangely turned on.
Yeah, it reminds me of how I'm strangely turned on by all sorts of things.
I didn't say turned on.
I think I didn't have issues with that because I think whilst I maybe don't think it's the best portrayal, it is sort of that National Geographic trope that will kind of quickly play to a lot of people in the audience about who these people are and their culture. Does that make sense?
I think I know what you're trying to say, but I still think they're like sort of, pin-up girl kind of.
Oh, yeah. Undoubtedly.
They're just naked. They're sexualized, I believe.
Yeah. Their forms are very, like, idealized in a lot of ways, for sure.
And that gets particularly I already thought it was creepy. It gets particularly creepy when you introduce the family and all the younger ones and all the young blue and green people with nothing on. Even the human guy with the spider.
Yep.
Like the extent of his kind of get up was just a bit much as well. I thought just made me feel a bit funny, which reminded me of the Blue Lagoon.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
starring
nice.
Is it Christopher Atkins or something? Christopher Atkins and Brooke Shields.
Yeah.
Running around underage nude. The water scenes when they're in the lagoon were almost frame for frame. Not that I remember frame for frame the Blue Lagoon, but my memory of it was similar to this.
He's printed each frame off. He's got a Blue Lagoon room.
That's it. The Blue Lagoon for the funny sort of last thing. And to the point of if you're going to do it properly. In I think it was a Sigourney Weaver character in a tank at the start, and you actually she's nude too, and you see a nipple.
Did you?
Yes.
I'm going to have to rewind that.
Yes, you did. Which I actually thought, oh, good. They're gonna do this properly. Like if they're nude, they're nude.
No, you can't have nipples. That's against the rules.
But you did, or maybe on your second viewing, because I'm not having another one.
Okay.
You can check if there was. I'll check one. But then that just seemed odd because it also annoys me when they are naked, but then everything's strategically placed. I think it just annoys me. I can't explain.
No, I get it. When you've got underboob, when you've got loads of underboob but no nipple. And you know it's not right. You know there's just gravity's playing against it, the water's doing its thing, and there's just never a nipple in sight. I get it. Yeah, it's a problem.
Just do it properly or don't do it at all. Okay, sorry. That's
all right.
Too long.
Oh no. That was the perfect length to end up in that spot. That was good.
Well, look, on a sort of, I guess, an attempt to keep this not going too long, I came in with one reminds me of. Was there anything else you wanted to? Yeah,
I have some.
Great.
I have some.
Please dive in.
I've already said Moana because, I mean, what do you want from me? They're explicitly coded as Pacific Islanders and Jermaine Clement is kind of a bad guy.
Sure.
It's Moana.
Yeah.
I know you've said Aliens, but Aliens for a different reason.
Ooh, great.
And I want to make sure I talk about this because this will lead into my next one as well. We can all agree that Aliens is James Cameron's Vietnam movie, yeah?
Never thought about it that way, but sure. I'm with you.
But it's like a good Vietnam because whilst the Viet Cong are able to, who are the aliens obviously, are able to kind of, massacre some amount of the Marines, in the end, the US wins, right? So it revises the ending to the Vietnam War. This is like his second Vietnam War movie, but it's the reverse of Aliens. Because it says you've got the bad guys who are explicitly the US. You've got the native population who are the good guys. The US come in, they do their war crimes.
Right.
And honestly, like this, it would in no way shock me to find out if James Cameron had the Vietnam War in mind whilst writing this film with some of the things that happens.
Like the burning of the villages and so on and all those war crimes created. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But whereas Avatar 1 was kind of surprisingly subversive because let's get America to do it a 9/11. The US did war crimes in the Vietnam War is the least subversive thing you can say this far out from the Vietnam War. I mean, George Lucas made Star Wars in 1977 and made a Vietnam War movie and had the good guys as the Viet Cong. That was subversive. This now, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, but the other thing this is a reverse apocalypse now. It's apocalypse now from the point of view of Kurtz. Jake Sully is Kurtz.
Wow.
Interesting.
And Quattrich is Martin Sheen.
He's going in to get him. Yeah. Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. Nice.
That's
Deep.
that is deep.
James Cameron, man, he's onto something.
There's no way he was thinking that. No way he
There's no
had
way
the
he was
nous to
thinking
be
that.
thinking that. That's too.
No. But this is why texts aren't created by their authors, isn't it?
That's right. That's why the author's dumb.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool.
Those are good. I'm glad you were on this podcast. Kim, you got any others to add? Or is that really hard to follow?
Both. It's very hard to follow. Mine are seeming very lame. I'm just thinking, what can I say? Can I just make another comment about the me and my wife Wendy?
Let's just go back to the underboob.
No. She coined a term, something like Americana normcore or something. That was,
oh wow,
it was just so.
That's cool.
It was so American. And what really bugged me was you've got Sully and his kids in, this completely other culture, and yet they're calling them the Sullys, the Sullys.
The Sullys stick together.
And
yeah, that was really strange. I agree.
The kids are sort of doing things like, hey, what's happening, cuz? And that just got to me, or in a bad way. Anyway.
Oh no. I think that's completely fair. The whole hey, he's trying to get in with the cool kids of the tribe, and they play a prank on him. I'm like, oh, for fuck, seriously, we're doing this. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
strap in, guys. It's gonna be a bumpy one.
You talk about the White Messiah. He's come in and just completely taken over the joint in his own image. Yeah, a bit sick. Anyway, that reminds me of, not that particularly, but I was reminded of movies where the family is escaping and then they go somewhere and just bring all the drama to some other bloody family.
Oh yeah.
And I'm thinking of things like The Mosquito Coast, the series. I don't think I've seen the movie, but season 1 of The Mosquito Coast, I just got so sick of this family going places and bringing their problems to other people. And that, I feel, what the blue guys did to the green people.
They did entirely.
They were very clear at the start, weren't they? They were like, we don't want you here because you're going to bring the war here, and we don't want that. And they were like, come on, guys, we've got nowhere else to go. And like, oh, shit, they've got nowhere else to go. And, of course, it all just happens. And
of course.
What else is going to happen?
It's just such artificial drama. I think that's what bugged me about it.
Yeah.
And why it didn't work is because every time there's a story beat, it's just the most facile, artificial choice being made. And I was just like, there's nothing for me to find a way in on any of this.
But didn't you love just those beautiful corals under the water and just the holding of the little pods that you could have air in them?
First time. Seriously, you go back to your description of Act 2. Do you know what Act 2 is? It's a cascading series of training montages.
Yes.
That's what Act 2 is.
That is correct. Yeah, that is what it is.
I don't care. I do not care.
Let's relearn Pandora. Let's go through it all over again. But this time it's water instead of trees.
Yeah.
And this time we're wearing our hair out.
Oh.
We're not putting it up in
It
ponytails.
looks better in water.
No, because we need to look different to the bad guy avatars that are arriving with the very hard split ponytails.
Well, they've all got marine haircuts with a ponytail.
With a ponytail.
It's all business on the front and sides. It's party at the back.
Do we have any final thoughts around the grounds?
I've got one that we haven't touched on, and I did want to bring it up earlier, but I feel like Neytiri was really shortchanged in this film.
Yeah.
Which one was Neytiri?
Jake's wife.
Jake's wife.
Okay.
But she does get to do her screams.
But that's all she does. It's like Natiri's on screen, she's screaming, therefore one of the children must be in trouble. Like,
Correct.
That's how I knew what was happening in this story. Otherwise, I was like, what happened to her? Like, she was an amazingly well-rounded character in the first film, but she was a very strong character. And then she just kind of disappears.
Became Jake's wife.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's totally true. And actually the script, because, you know, Zoe Saldana's scream that she does whenever something goes wrong is so iconic in the first film. And it's almost like James Cameron said, yeah, that's the good stuff right
exactly.
there. Let's roll that out every 10 minutes in this film and just remind people how great it is. Because it's scattered throughout the whole thing.
Yep.
Anyway.
She's a much more interesting character than most of the others, even though
hells yes.
I don't care much of
Jake in particular.
Right.
Yeah. Jake in particular is just not much of anything.
Well, he was in the first one. Like the to give it credit, the first movie when he's in a chair and then he goes into the booth and can then run.
Mm-hmm.
That in itself is a really great device.
Yeah. Well,
but he doesn't have that anymore. Now he's fine.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Now he's become a bit of a boring dad that's over controlling, and that's kind of it. That's his character.
Yeah. I mean, did you know that being a dad was hard?
Yeah.
Because if you didn't, you would walk out of that film going, being a dad must be hard.
Yeah. It's a tough gig. So, I mean, I guess as I was saying before, there are things in this that are, I think, forgivable. Some of them you can just go, okay. And there's a lot that isn't very forgivable. And yet, as you were saying, and definitely as I was saying, I think people will be going back to see it over and over again.
God,
anyway.
Yes.
God,
yes.
And do you think James Cameron has just gone, I'm betting on the fact that the story isn't the important thing here, and what it is it's the world and the spectacle. That's what people want.
Yeah.
And the escape.
Yeah.
They want the escape. They don't want to think too much about it. They just want to escape to Pandora, this amazing world that I've created. And that's what I'm going to give him. Is
entirely
that.
That.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think to say the story is not the important thing, if he's seriously made a film and said, look, as long as I get the effects right, the story is not the most important thing. Yeah. I think the story is very intentional to have the broadest possible appeal.
Yes.
Which excludes me, but it would capture quite a few.
No, you're right. That's entirely right. As you say, he's interested in saying, here's a story that's comfortable.
Yes. Well said.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I can
where people don't need to engage necessarily in the same way that they would with a more complex version of that story.
The bad guys are clearly the bad guys, and there's no nuance there. Mm-hmm. You're not at any point, feeling like maybe Quattrich has a point here.
No.
That's
you
never
never see
happening.
his point of view. Yeah. I mean, you do have the moment where it's like, Quattrich is going to do a war crime. But his kid is here, so he will only do half a war crime this time.
There's some little nuggets of maybe humanity in there. Yeah. When the son saved him, I thought for a minute, are we going to have in the next film, Quattrich has sort of gone native himself, decided to switch sides. I don't think that's going to happen.
I think
no, I don't. Supposedly he's going to be the bad guy for all the sequels.
Oh, how do you know this? This is inside information.
This isn't inside information. This is freely available on Reddit. Interviews with James Cameron.
Oh, really?
I do my research,
Yes,
people.
you do. Yes, you do. Well, on that note, should we wrap it up? Is there anything else that anyone, any burning?
Yep, one.
Yeah, okay, please.
I just want to finish with a metaphor that I think sums it up. I think it's a good final thought.
Great.
Sean, have you seen the Saturday Night Live skit with Ryan Gosling about the use of the font Papyrus for Avatar? I think the fact that they use Papyrus is a metaphor for the whole film. Like they've taken the easy way out. They've just taken something that already exists, stories that already exist, and just slightly tweaked them around the edges, and there you got your film and your font.
And also they doubled down its back in this film.
Both the font and the film.
After all of that scrutiny about the font, it's still there. He's like, He's like, I don't care, guys. Papyrus is part of what makes this awesome, so shut up.
James Cameron has never been about being cool.
Yeah, that's true.
Ever.
Okay, I think we
All
can
right,
probably
I need
cut
to
that
do
bit
the
out.
eyes. So
On that note,
That's beautiful.
thanks
That's
for being with us,
beautiful.
Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
no worries. Cheers for having me.